Hey everyone, I'm John with Roadkill Incorporated. Today I'm going to organize my video game console shelf. There is the shelf, and here are all the consoles. I've organized them roughly by what they are, and I'm going to examine them further, figure out the best place to put them on the shelf, and that's the plan. So let's get to it. I don't know exactly how this is going to go, but I think it might make sense to have shelves for Microsoft, Nintendo, Sony, and then maybe a miscellaneous shelf. Also might make sense to have the heavy stuff on the bottom, just so the shelf is not top heavy. You guys are definitely going to be yelling at me throughout this whole video because I don't know consoles, so I'm going to be saying some pretty stupid stuff, I'm sure, but it is what it is. If you've watched my channel a while, you might recall this video in which my friend Andrew and I picked up a van load of consoles from a recycler. Definitely check it out, it's pretty entertaining. Well, over a period of time, there were 5 or 6 van loads. The consoles I'm organizing today are the unique ones I decided to keep out of all of those. But yeah, I managed to convince this recycler to sell consoles to me by the pallet, which was kind of a miracle because recyclers generally destroy consoles without a thought and really don't consider selling them off. In fact, this recycler no longer sells to me at all, which means they're scrapping their consoles right now. So yeah, you should really think of that. Visualize that. All your favorite consoles are being destroyed every day by recyclers. So if you want to save them, go knock on their doors and offer $8 to $10 each and offer to take as many as they have because that's the only way you're going to spark their interest. It's not worth it to them otherwise. And if you do manage to pull that off, you'll have a pretty good business selling them on eBay because the console market is absolutely heating up. Anyway, back to our scheduled programming. Figured I'd start with Xbox Ones. They have this guy on the front, most of them. I tried to keep these. I assume this is for saving games or something like that.
And then Xboxes, we haven't found any variations between the Xboxes, but apparently there was a time where you would need to use a cartridge in order to read DVDs on your Xbox, which is, I mean, it's pretty retro in that element of it. I just can't imagine not having a device that wouldn't play DVDs automatically. The Xboxes are always in great shape, even the ones that are dirty and a little bit busted up all look like they very well could work if you plugged them in.
Not sure if this is an official version or some third-party thing, but kind of cool. So I'll put this on top. I'm putting these on the top shelf just so I can have them all in one stack. They'd be too tall to put here. I think the 360s are going to go here because they're going to fill up a whole shelf. And I like the 360s, so I think I want them accessible rather than down at the bottom. But yeah, I had hundreds of these guys, sold them in, I believe, 3 or 4 packs on eBay for like 99 bucks each. These are probably the 5 nicest that I decided to keep. Okay, so the 360s are in sort of 2 categories. These are just the basic black and white ones, nothing special. And then I have the special edition ones that I bothered to keep. So I'll put the basic ones behind like that because I don't need to look at them. And then I'll keep the special edition ones front and center. It's funny, this recycler didn't remove hard drives from these things. I don't think they realized that they had hard drives. We've got tons and tons of hard drives. I don't think they knew that the module on top is actually a hard drive, which is kind of funny. Okay, so these are the special edition 360s. 360 as opposed to the 360Ss, I think. I've never quite understood the difference. But anyway, yeah, so they're pretty cool. Got a couple Halo editions here. This one, I don't know if this is a special edition. It just has sort of a carbon fiber front, and as we all know, carbon fiber makes things run much faster, so that's a fast machine. Then here we have, I don't know what game had skulls, but there it is. And then we have blue. I don't know what edition that is either. And then we have a clear case. So I don't think this is official, probably, but it's a clear case with a really ugly fan on the side, and it's very dirty, so kind of cool.
If there's one thing that Microsoft did pretty well with its product is they had customizable and unique collector's editions that gamers were able to identify themselves with. Here is the only clear case Xbox 360 that I've seen, which is Halo 4.
So it's not a skin; it's an actual different case.
It's a different material, yeah.
Oh, well,
yeah.
There they are, looking good. And here are the 360S special editions. A couple of Gears of War. I don't really know which way is up or down with these things. What is this? Call of Duty. Okay. Game of Thrones. Is this a Halo? Not really sure. I've never actually used a 360 or tried to power any of these on, so I think it shows Halo 4, and this one appears to be upside down. And then we have Star Wars, and apparently this one makes interesting sounds when you power it on, specific to Star Wars, which is cool. Yeah, I assume these are probably worth a little more than generic 360s, but I don't have the specific controllers for them. Unfortunately, I know they have controllers that have the same graphics and that kind of thing. But whatever, it is what it is. I got hundreds of these and hundreds of standard 360s, sold them mostly to a console refurbisher in Minneapolis, and only kept the ones that I thought seemed sort of interesting. Probably kept too many as it is. There they are, looking good. I moved the clear case to the edge because that giant crazy fan was, messing up the look here, so the fan is hanging off that side, which is nice. And oh, whoops, I forgot about these. These are 360Es? So there's E's, there's S, and then there's standard. I don't know what the difference is, but I'll put these on the shelf. Got them on there. Not perfect, but whatever. What are you gonna do? And on the table, we have the remaining Microsoft material, box of hard drives, as you can see, pretty cool. We have Xbox Connects, I think they're called. They let you stand in front and act like a fool and control the game. I know these mostly from being in the glitch art communities. You go to art shows and they'll set up reactive art, so you wave your hands around and the art changes because one of these is there watching you. Pretty cool use of those. And then we have these four. These are Xbox Ones and then Xbox One S's. They continued the confusing naming convention with these apparently. Also confusing Xbox One, O-N-E, instead of One. And also, that kind of conflicts with that, doesn't it? The first Xbox. They're sort of like invalidating their first product. I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway, I had two SDK, XDK, I don't know what I forgot the letters, but the development stations for these, they were a unique product, like bigger than these. They sold for like $800 each. I sold one to that YouTuber Tronics Fix, and he did a video about it. Pretty cool. Yeah, so I had to sell those. Those were obviously worth money.
The most remarkable one we had in there was a developer kit Xbox One. It's like falling apart, but it's still remarkable to see that there was like a developer kit platform. We actually have two of them right here.
So strange that the developer kit would involve a specific piece of hardware.
Yeah, it's probably yeah.
Stuff rattling around. Yeah. Looking good. Looking pretty good. And moving on to Sony next. So these are PS1s. These were a big deal when I was in college a million years ago. Although I didn't use them then. I was a computer guy. So someone told me that the versions with the audio and video out are more useful for art applications and art shows. So I paid attention to keeping those. Again, no idea if any of these work. So, I don't know. Here's this one thing again. I don't know what it is with consoles and that. I assume this is a PS1, like a more modern, compact version. Not really sure. Next, we've got 4 PS2s and 4 PS2 Slims. This guy has some artwork. No idea if it's a special edition or just some person going crazy. I like the aesthetic of these. They're just sort of interesting. They're almost like sci-fi, like a spaceship, you know, in a movie, like moving along. I don't know. I just like this sort of rough, you know, striated look to them. Yeah, I had hundreds of these guys, and I regret selling them pretty cheap. And I think they're pretty popular and coming back. So I wish I'd held on to more of those. But whatever. Nice and compact on the shelf there. Everything fit pretty well, which is good because we need this space for these suckers. Oh my god, these things are just huge and heavy. This sort of glimmering silver black, it reminds me of the Cylons in Battlestar Galactica, you know? So yeah, I have about a dozen of these. I paid attention to keeping the ones with 4 USB ports. Someone told me that those are the desirable ones. Something about them being backwards compatible, but then also they're more problematic to fix. I don't know. I kept them just because. And then we have these more compact versions. I don't know what they're called. Let me guess, the 1 or the S. But anyway, we have 6 of those. And then we have yet a different version. I don't know, maybe this came later, just sort of a slimline version. Not sure at all. And then we have the 4, the PS4, which is kind of cool. It's kind of going back to the PS2 aesthetic, the sort of chunky, brutalist design. I like it. I had many of these, but most of them were kind of smashed, and I think I sold them all off in a large lot. So kept this one though because it looked pretty nice. There they all are, looking pretty good, huh? Yeah. Look at this. I found a Silver Slim. I knew I had a Silver Slim somewhere. Problem is it's one too many to fit in our nice pile. So the silver guy will have to go in the pile behind. So sad. Anyway, but now we're on to Nintendo. Look at all of this Nintendo. Yeah, I tried to keep all of the colored ones, the Wii's. There weren't that many, and the ones I did keep are not necessarily great shape. A lot of them have cards in the front, again, which is funny because recyclers supposedly get rid of data. And then there are the white ones. Obviously, white is the predominant color. Wait, is white a color? I'm not sure. But I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these and sold them, you know, in 10 packs for maybe $200, which is probably way too low. But yeah, I had lots of Wii's. And here are Wii U's. I don't quite understand what a Wii U is. Is it just a step up from a Wii? And then what are these? Like, does this control that? Or is this like the next generation that has this in it? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Not quite sure I understand you, Wii U, but there you are. And then we have, oh shoot, these are Microsoft. What am I doing? I forgot to put these in the Microsoft pile. These are kind of goofy. They're HD DVD players for the 360, I guess. HD DVD is a failed DVD standard. Kind of like when there was VHS and Beta and then VHS 1. Well, there was HD DVD and Blu-ray 1. So I guess Microsoft went with their own standard and they produced these guys. I wonder if there are titles that came out for this failed standard. I wonder if they're rare and expensive. There they are down there, looking pretty good. And now on to the rest of the Nintendo. So yeah, GameCubes, really cool devices. And then the Nintendo 64. These both fall into the category of, I wish I hadn't sold them all. I had dozens or hundreds of both of these, sold them fairly cheap, and then realized that they actually have a lot of value, especially these guys, I think. Super Nintendo and Nintendo Entertainment System, the original, those were both very popular when I was 10 years old. Although I didn't have them, I had to play them at my friends' houses because I had a Commodore VIC-20 at that point, I think. Then you have the original Nintendo Game Boy, and you have this, which is a cheap $10 toy off of AliExpress. It's pretty funny. You can actually pick between all of the games ever created for Nintendo. They're all on here, it seems. And Sea War, I haven't heard of that one. Anyway, yeah, so you can go the retro route, or you can go the $10 on AliExpress route. And finally, what is probably my favorite thing on the console shelf, the Nintendo DS's. They're just such cool little devices. We've got the DS's, the DS XL, the 2DS, I believe. Yeah, only encountered one of these. And then the 3DS, the more advanced, bigger ones. Just so cool. I really like these, even though I haven't powered any of them on. So then we have these guys.
Yeah.
And I was telling Andrew, when I was a little kid, I had this little orange Nintendo game that opened up just, yeah, exactly like that. It was Donkey Kong. And it wasn't even a real screen. It was like a pocket calculator screen. But I loved the thing. And I mean, I'm sure everyone watching is laughing at me because you know exactly what all these
they're
are.
like, oh, it's a Nintendo DS, of course.
Yeah, but I'm just fascinated that we now have like dozens of these that are, you know, obviously way better than the one I had 30 years ago. But.
Yeah, and I think the main point there is that the design aesthetic choices of Nintendo existed across generations of their technology.
Yeah, definitely.
Which, you know, it's kind of interesting to see the evolution of form factor within the piece of hardware.
Sure.
Yeah, so, you know, and all of these were just like added in because like the people at the place that we work with, that John gets stuff from, you know, it was described as a box of Xbox parts.
And then I realized I forgot in the Sony section to show the PSPs. Don't know a lot about them, but they are really popular, cool devices that you can mod and load a bunch of different stuff on and that can emulate other platforms. Shout out to my friend Jim, who's starting a small business refurbishing these, and he's actually having quite a bit of success, so that's great. Got those guys on the shelf, and on to Atari. Don't have too much Atari. This is the 5200, this big massive thing, and then the 7800, a little smaller. These weren't that popular because of the popularity of this guy. This is the Atari 2600, the most famous and popular game console of all time, really. They sold millions and millions and millions of these. There were many variations. Some of them have this, you know, lovely wood grain. Some of them don't. Some of them are branded Atari. Some of them aren't. They're not worth a lot of money because there just were so many of them. They're still pretty common. And they're making variations up to this day. Like this thing, I don't know how old this is, maybe 10, 15 years ago. It is really an actual Atari 2600, just in this paddle. It has dozens of games on it, and it has a modern color composite and audio out. So you can use it on a fairly current TV, which is important because these old guys, a lot of old consoles, a lot of old retro computers used RF, which is a pain. We actually had to use one of these switch boxes. These prongs would connect to the back of a television, or some of these had coax that would connect to coax, and then you set your TV to channel 3 or whatever. So that's pretty much impossible on modern TVs. So it's very hard to adapt the old school consoles to modern televisions, and it gets a lot of these scrapped and thrown away because people don't understand how it works, or they think this is color composite and they try and plug it in, but they don't get a signal, so they throw the thing away. It's a real shame. I know a guy who specializes in adapting the old consoles to modern televisions, and he'll put RCA jacks on the back of these. He'll put HDMI, things like that on these devices so that he can save them. But unfortunately, it takes a lot of skill to do that. It's not just a simple procedure. And lastly, with the Atari, we have a bunch of chips. These are taken out of Atari 2600 games. I don't know why someone went through and did that. Possibly they were going to scrap the chips and cash out the money for that. But yeah, for some reason, I have a pile of 2600 cartridge chips. Put the Atari up top there, and onto some miscellaneous systems. Sega, I really don't know a lot about. I just kept a small handful just to have the different variations. We've got the bigger ones, we've got the smaller ones, Master System 2. I assume this is just a more modern, compact version. I don't know if it has any games on it or not. Then there's the Game Gear Handheld, which has a Sonic 2 cartridge. Kind of cool. And then we have this. People don't realize, but Pong was insanely popular. There was the original Pong, which I have somewhere I couldn't find. But then there were just dozens of crazy Pong clones. I had about 10 of them. I should have kept them, but I sold them off in a batch. Just dozens and dozens and dozens of these. Basically the same game, but the interfaces and the physicality of the consoles is really interesting because they're very different. Then we have Intellivision. Intellivision was actually the only console I owned back in the day. I had it in the Atari 2600 era. Intellivision's a little bit better than 2600. The graphics and sound are just a little bit better. And then you have these goofy controllers, which are actually pretty functional. You've got a lot of buttons. You can slide in a little inlay thing for each game that gives you controls. So, fairly intelligent system. Then we have the Intellivision 2, which, as far as I'm aware, didn't do so well. There weren't many of those around. This is interesting. It's an IntelliVoice. So you plug this into the cartridge slot, and then you plug an IntelliVoice capable game into the other side, and then the game talks. That's a common theme in the 80s world. I mean, there were voice modules even for Commodore 64s. But they didn't do so well because you had to have a compatible software, and there generally wasn't a lot of software that tagged onto this concept. And here you go, the console you've been waiting for this whole video, Raceway. There it is. And just finishing off here with a few items, we've got a bunch of games. This is kind of cool, a Pelican Accessories switch box. You can connect all your vintage consoles to this thing and switch between them. That's kind of cool. Got some game cartridges, a Newbie Game Light. Wow, that has a battery in it. I'm sure it's not in great shape. Game Genie, not sure what that is. Maybe it lets you cheat on games, something along those lines. Got all the controllers. Here's a VTech toy game. Lots of different controllers, pretty much one for everything. And then AC adapters. What a mess that is. At some point, I resolved to get one AC adapter for every console. I think I succeeded. I think they're all in here. But boy, what a mess that is. How many consoles get thrown away because they just don't have the appropriate proprietary AC adapter? It's really a mess. All right, so that's it. There's the finished shelf in all its glory. Wow, isn't it great? So now on to the question that everyone will ask, what am I going to do with this stuff? Certainly, it all needs to be handed over to users right now, so it can all be furiously used right now, right? Actually, no. What I'm going to do is let this stuff sit on the shelf for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. And that's because if you look at the U-curve is the life of devices. It starts out at the top right here when it's new. It quickly falls in value to nothing, down to what's called the rubbish period, where it gets scrapped and destroyed and it's considered worthless. That's why it's underwater, because most material drowns and gets destroyed in the rubbish period. And then, if it's lucky and it manages to survive, then maybe, just maybe, it will become retro and gain value, and people will preserve it, and it will come up the other side here. So why am I keeping all this in a time capsule? Because the best way for devices to survive for the long term is to sit in a safe space throughout the rubbish period, which these devices are still in the tail end of. Throwing everything into the wind during this period out of some belief that they all should be used right now gets them destroyed more often than preserved. And so, yeah, that's what I'm doing. They will sit and they will be safe, and I will release them into the world at some later date when the world actually values them and they aren't so much at risk. So please don't ask to buy them, but feel free to check back with me in 10 years. Until then, thanks for watching.